supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog parent, in your dog parenting journey. I hope everyone has had a good week. So this week, I thought I would talk about one of the things that as dog owners, I think we should be really grateful for in modern dog ownership times, because these things weren't around years ago. And that is the wonderful invention of a dog walking field. Whether you've been to one before, heard of them, not explored them yet, or think they're a complete waste of time, let's talk about the benefits of a dog walking field. So first of all, what is it? For those of you who maybe haven't heard of one, because I say they are still relatively new. I mean, I think 10, 15 years ago, you'd have been like, what? But dog walking fields are basically a fenced piece of land that you can hire privately, turn up to, open a gate, drive in, shut the gate behind you, lock it, and have a secure space for your dog to enjoy without having to worry about coming across other people or them running away. So let's talk about them and how useful and beneficial they can be. So used to be that they were few and far between. So when I first started using a dog walking field, it was with Dave when he was younger. So he was about a year old-ish maybe. So what's that, 6.5 years ago? I had to drive 45 minutes to get to our closest one. That's how far away it was. Now, just 6.5 years later, there are probably 10 within that radius, which is, wow, amazing, really good. But why are they so popular? Why? What's happened? Now, you've got dog walking fields of so many different shapes, sizes. I've been to quite a few because I think they're quite enjoyable. Now, let's look at a few of the main reasons people use them. One, the most obvious answer is that your dog doesn't have good recall. If your dog doesn't have recall and you can just let them off and know that they can run and not come into any bother, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You've also got people who use them if their dogs are aggressive, reactive, etc. So, you know, if your dog has to wear a muzzle because they're not good around people, you don't meet people, you don't meet other dogs, you can have a relaxing, stress-free walk. You've got bitches in heat when, again, you know, you don't really want to walk them because you don't know who you're going to come in contact with. But then you can have this space that's just for you. You've got other reasons, so like new puppies. You've got dogs who just find the world a little bit stressful. People, you know, not everybody wants to meet people on their walk, which I know it sounds, you know, I'm the same. I'm a bit antisocial. My time out with my dogs is for me. I don't really want to talk to people. That sounds so rude. Obviously, if I come across you and you're a follower or a listener and you talk to me, I'll be ever so polite, I promise. I won't be rude. But I just don't like being around people when I can take my dog for a walk. I spend most of my days around people, talking to people, and it's nice to just go for a walk and be silent. So I'm not a sociable walker. So going to a field means I know I'm not going to have to be polite to people because, you know, naturally people's social battery and social energy drains and we don't always want to talk to people. Sometimes it's because there's new activities for your dog to use. Sometimes you can just relax. You just have to worry. One of the uses, obviously, for me as a multi-dog owner, it's just nice not to have to put them all on leads at the start, worry about who's on lead, off lead, what we're going to come across. And it's just nice to let them all explore. So there's so many reasons we use them. But I think there's also a lot of people that are still like a little bit anti. Obviously, they're expensive. You have to pay to use them. And they can be from cheap to quite expensive. It depends on your area. It depends on the facilities. So what we need to look for in a field, let's look at that. You know, if you haven't used one before or if you're looking at finding one, ideally you want to look at the location. What's the fencing like? Because they all come in different shapes and sizes. You know, some of them, I went to one recently. It was out Birmingham way, I think. I don't really remember. I was on my way back from holiday somewhere and I'd Googled where the local fields were. And I didn't know what I was turning up to. Now, I don't book them because my dogs are escape artists. I book them because I just want to let them all off lead and not have to worry about keeping an eye on my surroundings and clipping particular ones on because they're all different. You know, Dave's really sociable and run over to say hello to people. Fred's a little bit wary and woofs because he's like, whoa, people, weird stuff. There's a bin, you know, he's a bit strange, which is fine, managing it. Rem is lovely. Just occasionally will lay down if he sees a dog, but If you're out on a walk and you just want a stress-free walk and you're going to have to be obviously aware of what your dogs are doing, I just want to go, guys, let's just go relax. It's a bit like a spa for them almost. You get to go and relax. So on my way home from holidays or whatever, I like to book a field just for relaxing. I'm not worried about how high your fence is. Obviously, if it's got gaps in it, I don't want that. I've got big dogs, so I don't mind little gaps, but a gap that my dog can get through, obviously, that's basically my only requirement. I want a fence. Just so that I know I'm not going to come in, and I don't want to come into contact with people. Again, makes me sound so antisocial. That's all I'm looking for. So I'm quite easy in terms of my requirements, but other people will need a 6-foot fence. If you've got an escape artist dog, you're going to want double gate entry so that if you're opening one gate, you're not worried about them getting out. Some people want to be able to drive in. Some people aren't bothered about being to drive in. Some people want activities. So what's on offer? Obviously the fencing, let's check the fencing out. That's a good shout. Parking, etc. Some people want the ones that have got hoses to wash your dogs off. Some people want a green site and they don't care. You can get ones with activities. Some have poo bins, some don't have poo bins. They're all things to consider. And obviously there's the location of it, because some places will have multiple dog fields on one site and they all butt up to each other. So if you're taking a reactive dog and you want a stress-free walk, but there's somebody else walking on the other side of a fence, that's obviously not going to be very stress-free, is it? Because your dog's going to be seeing the dog through the fence. So you want to check out things like that as to whether they're on a busy site or if there are other people around. I've been to a couple of places where there are fields butted up against each other. Some that have a gap between them. One site has got 3 that I go to, but there's like fields in between. Others are solely on their own where they are with nothing else around. So it's all these things are worth considering. And a lot of people, I think, then obviously justify the money. Look at how it's kept, for example. So some fields don't mow the grass, which is fine in the winter, but in the summer it's then really, really tall. Others mow it religiously every week. So all of those things will come into the cost of when you hire a field. You've got some that are quite expensive, some that are really cheap. The average price, I think, roughly is about £15 an hour, 10 to £15 an hour. And obviously that depends on the size. You've got small fields that are like 1 acre. You've got big fields that are 25 acres. They're all different. I went to one in Birmingham when I was on holiday, and I actually want to go back to it just because it's a bit too far away. It was about an hour and a half away from me. I want to find an excuse to go back there because it was really nice. And that was 30 acres. And I think I paid 20 quid for 2 hours. Maybe it was 30 quid for 2 hours, I don't remember, but it was amazing. It was so nice. Nothing there, nothing at all, just green space. And that for me is fine. And it was all different fields connected almost. And it was just felt like you were walking for a walk in the countryside. But you knew there was a stock fence that no one could get through. It wasn't great for escape artists. If you had an escape artist dog, he'd be over the top. So let's delve a little bit more into the uses and why they're useful. We actually manage a field, so I'm talking from both sides of the coin here. I didn't have a 100% fenced field with either of my first two dogs, but I did when it came to Fred. So he could be off lead in the field. I was completely stress-free from 9 weeks old. And it was really nice for him to be able to do that. So as a young puppy owner, it's a really nice space to just have those first few off-lead times where you can just let your dog off, know they're not going to go anywhere, they can't get lost, and just practice, let them have a little bit of freedom, which is always nice for puppies, but also practice like calling them back to you. Having that little bit of freedom, I think, is really, really valuable. If you've got a dog who you're training recall with, then obviously it's a safe space to practice your recall without any distractions and apart from just smells, but recall and practice the recall, which is really, really nice. Often, again, when it comes to recall, look at our previous episode about recall where we've talked about recall. We tend to test it more around distractions before we're ready, whereas a secure field is quite nice to not have any distractions and just work on your distance and recall them away from smells without having to worry about the lead. Your dog feels off lead, but obviously you can then practice it, which is nice. If you're booking a secure field or dog walking field because you've got a reactivity issue, it will revolutionize your life with your dog, because if every time you take your dog out for a walk and they bark at something or it gets them stressed, walks become a pain in the bottom. You hate them. You start dreading them. You don't want to go on them. Your dog's stressed. You're stressed. You're constantly watching, going, all right, who's coming round where? Where's our escape route? It's not fun. It's not fun for anybody. a dog walking field takes away all of that stress. Your dog can just go for a walk, be off lead, guaranteed, hopefully, depending on where you pick, to not meet anyone. And therefore, you have a relaxing time, your dog has a relaxing time, and it puts the joy back into taking your dog for a walk. So if you have a reactive dog and you've never tried going to a dog walking field, put it into Google, dog walking field near me, and you'll be surprised how many pop up. Go and do it and just see the difference. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, yeah, we'd be able to walk them like this every day. Realistically, you can't. But once or twice a week, letting your dog have that stress-free exploration, fun, relaxing time is so beneficial to them. It is unreal. Now, obviously, we think about them as being an off-lead space. Absolutely. But if you're struggling with your dog pulling on the lead, which is a really common issue, I'm a bit of a nerd. It's one of my favourite topics. I love lead work. But it is really common. We often look at how can I work more on lead work? When actually, what we could look at is how can I practice setting myself up for success? And sometimes that means booking a dog walking field, letting them have all the freedom in the world, taking the lead out of the equation. You can just work on connection. And then again, it ticks a box. You've done your walk. You haven't had to worry about the lead. Nice, stress-free, going back to the stress-free part again. And you can then next day do a bit of lead work, but do it without the necessity to exercise, but more from a training perspective. I think, obviously, again, bitches in heat. It's a nice space. You're not going to come across anybody. You're not going to have to worry about your dog being hounded by all the boy dogs locally. You're not having to constantly look around going, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Has it been done? Has it not? While you're walking around. So many reasons that they are so beneficial. New dogs, new rescue dogs, dogs you're trying to get used to. There are so many benefits of a field. But I think one of the main things that we often overlook is the stress-free element for humans. Because we always talk about the dogs, everything's about dog training. Let's train the dog. Let's teach the dog to do this. The dog needs to do that. As you'll know, if you listen to this podcast quite a lot, we talk about the human because we are 50% of the partnership. And if we're stressed, naturally, our dogs become stressed. If we're not enjoying life, if we're finding dog walks stressful, we blame the dog, not because we mean it, but because we start to see the dog as you're the reason I'm stressed. We start to see it's a bit of a pain, and we start to see and take out our emotions and blame the dog almost because walks aren't fun. One of the other reasons that a lot of people use, which I think is really one to mention because it kind of goes hand in hand, is think about if you're worried about your dog getting lost or stolen, dog walking field. If you're trying to walk your dog and you've got young kids, dog walking field. Your kids can run wherever. You haven't got to worry about them getting in trouble. Your dog can run wherever. Stress free. That is the main reason. That is one of the big purposes I find for them. They take the stress out of human life. Yes, you've got to drive there. Yes, you've got to pay a little bit of money. But the stress it reduces from us, I think is valuable. And I think that's really, really important. And obviously it depends on you and it depends on your life. For some people, they'd go, I don't need it. And that's absolutely fine. But for a lot of people, they do. For a period of time, and obviously I've talked about my family and my kids a little bit previously on the podcast. Go back and look at another episode. But my daughter, one of them, has used to have a lot of anxiety about taking the dog for a walk. It's not an issue anymore because she doesn't walk the dog with me. But when she was a little bit younger and she did walk the dog with me, she would panic terribly about my dog being off the lead. I was not allowed to let him off the lead in her company because she was so worried that he'd run away, that he'd get lost, that someone else would take him, that she was like, I can't take him for a walk. He's got to be on the lead all the time. Even on a long line, she was like, no, it's too far. It made walks stressful for her. It made walks very stressful for me. And my dog's like, I'm a really good boy. I can go off. And I was like, I know, but she doesn't like you to. So we kept him on the long line for quite a while. As obviously she realised he was a very, very good boy and he was very focused on us and would come back. Occasionally we were allowed to let the lead off a little bit more. But then we started going to dog walking fields as a family, as an outing. So it wasn't just let's hire a dog walking field as a for the dog's purpose. It was for everybody. We would then go to a dog walking field. We'd make it a little bit of an event. I'd always make scones, and we'd go and be there. Dogs were off. Kids were happy. There was no concern about losing a dog. Took the stress out from them. I didn't have to constantly go, are you okay? Are they okay? everyone can just be free. So as a family, the event actually became enjoyable again. It's not something they join me with anymore because they're teenagers. But for a period of time, it was how we had enjoyable family walks. A lot of people still seem to think they're a little bit negative. But as I said, there's so many different types. The small ones, I get it, a bit boring. And a lot of people probably use a dog walking field as a way to exercise their dog from minimal effort on their part. So that's why a lot of them have shelters so people can sit and let the dog runs around. My dogs don't do that. I don't know about anyone else. I hire a dog walking field and I have to walk around with my dogs because otherwise they just stand there and go, Mum, what are you doing? Why aren't you walking with us? Come on. Which is why I hire the big ones. So the ones I go to tend to be 20, 25 and 30 acres because then at least I feel like I'm doing a bit of a walk. And they tend to have quite a lot of variety to them. So I think some people seem to think, or still under the impression that the dog walking fields are still tiny little things with nothing in it and you walk round and round and round and round, which is a bit boring. There are bigger and better fields that have got ponds, that have got woodland, that have got shrubs and hedges, and it feels like you're in the countryside, but without that concern. And I say, for most dogs, they're really beneficial. There are so many benefits to them. That's why they're so popular. So if you haven't sort of looked at one before, if you haven't come across one before, and you think it's not for you, I challenge you to try it and just see what you think. Because you can never make an opinion until you've done something, right? It may be something like, for example, if you've got a bitch in heat, it may be something you only use twice a year. But for those 2 times, you get a really nice time. If you've got a reactive dog, it might be something you use all the time. If you've got multiple dogs like me and you just go, I want a stress-free walk, you might use one a little bit more frequently. So I say my guys, once a month, we go for a big drive and have a day out, a morning out and go to a big field and we have a couple of hours there and it's really nice. It's like their little treat, I find. A little nice thing we can all do together. So there's so many different reasons for them. If you've not explored one yet, do, because often it helps with training as well. Again, we always think of training as being, a sort of linear success. We're always going to succeed. Management is often one of the big parts to play in terms if you're working on lead work, recall, reactivity, all of those things. A field can help with that management and give you days off where your dog still gets exercise, but you're not adding in the stresses, you're not having to worry about them running away or pulling on the lead. So they really help in terms of a management tool as part of a training program as well. And I think that's sometimes underestimated. And maybe they seem to be a bit lazy. I don't know what people's perception of them are, but they're definitely popular. And I think, as I say, we're really lucky to have them because they were never a thing. Obviously, I've grown up with dogs. I had dogs since I was 4. So they were never a thing. I'm sure if we'd said 20, 30 years ago, we're going to have invent some dog walking fields, people have gone, why would people pay to walk their dogs? But we're now seeing so many benefits from that. That's why they're so popular. But if you think about before we had them, what would we have done? If before you had a dog walking field, you'd have had to walk your dog religiously at 5 a.m. when everyone else was asleep, if you had a reactive dog. You'd have had to always keep your dog on a lead or just gone, oh, well, off you pop, have a nice time, let's hope you come back. So there's so many benefits from them. And I think sometimes we forget that there's so much more to a dog walking field than a dog that can't recall. There's so many other reasons that people use them. And they say, if you haven't tried one yet, go and try one. See what you think. Some have got obstacles in, some are bigger, some are smaller. They're all different, but see it as a place to go and connect with your dog, to relax, to chill out together and have a really nice time. Hopefully, this has inspired you, if you're not already converted, to go and use a dog walking field and let me know how you get on. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.